Rohit. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Stilt, and today we are with Liron, who is an investor in Stilt and also a serial entrepreneur. Many years ago, started a few companies. His latest was CommerceBid, and after that he has been investing for the past 15-20 years.
Yeah, hi.
Cool. So let's just start from your background.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about where you are from and how you moved to the US. How was your college experience and just things like those?
Okay, so I'm originally from Israel. I moved to the US in 1987. I was 22 years old. I met my wife in Israel and I followed her here, and it was actually, I moved to Chicago in 87. And in Israel, after high school, you go to the military. So I did not go to college. I went straight to the military.
Okay.
My dreams was to be a soccer player, but didn't end up being here. And I moved to Chicago, and I went to school in downtown Chicago. And I met an individual during my school, an individual that left IBM and started a computer company.
Oh, nice.
And I joined him. It was just the two of us. It was when the PCs just picked up.
What year was that?
That was the end of 87, beginning of 88. And the Intel 386 chip that just came out, and everyone was buying PCs. And he started a company. I joined him, and we were working with law firms in Chicago, large law firms, selling them PCs and connecting them and setting up local area networks. So I learned through the job, I learned what to do and how computers works, even though I studied a little bit of it in high school prior to that.
And what was your major? Did you go to college? What was your major in college after military, I assume?
So I did not go to college. I did 2 semesters in Chicago.
Okay.
And then when we started working, the business picked up, and I just left the school and continued work.
You were like a quintessential college dropout.
Correct. Yeah. Way before it was okay to do.
Yeah. Fascinating. And you started working on this in 88.
88, right.
And how long did you do this?
I did it until the end of 94, beginning of 95. The company grew to about 120 people. And we were focusing on local area networks and wide area networks, both in Chicago and the rest of the US. And I wanted to do something on my own, bigger, larger, and I wanted to move into the software side because we were doing mainly hardware.
Right.
And we were bringing all the software companies in, and our margins were small and their margins were 90%. So we wanted to do software. So I sold my part to my partner and an outside investment company that bought my part. And I decided to start the next thing.
Yeah, and this was like before the internet boom, or right about when?
Way before. It was 94. We heard the word, but we didn't know what's internet.
Interesting. And you started. What were there any like initial softwares that you saw?
So I saw a lot of accounting software and payroll and human resources stuff that started happening, and people are doing it, not much of the internet, as I said. And then I heard about Mosaic, which was the original Netscape that Mark Andreessen wrote back in Illinois, where I was. And I was reading that he's moving and starting a company here in the Bay Area.
Interesting.
And I told my wife, my next thing is a software company, and we're gonna do it in the Bay Area. And she thought I'm crazy. She grew up in Chicago, and we lived there together for 8 years. And that was my next venture. So
did you have kids back then?
No, my wife was pregnant with the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you asked her to move to the Bay Area.
Correct.
And did you have any idea what kind of company you want to
I had an idea before. I was looking and doing my own market research, and I decided to do something that everyone needs in the enterprise, and it was payroll and human resources. And I actually bought a source code from a company out of Ohio, something like this, and decided to do it here in the Bay Area. And I moved, bought this source code, hired a few developers, and we developed a software. Initially it was focused more on payroll and then human resources, and start selling it.
Interesting. So, and this is something like Zenefits and what Zenefits and Gusto do today?
Very similar to what they do today, except we did it as an enterprise solution, selling it to the enterprise. There was no SaaS or hosting at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was like with, so you got your own servers and everything, or you?
We did that, but usually we deployed it on customers'
Right.
premises, especially payroll was very sensitive.
And then what were the pricing models around that time? Everything up front? Do you pay a monthly?
So it was upfront license based on the number of employees, and I went after a large company. So my first customer was Genentech, the biotech company out of South San Francisco, which at the time had something like 4,000 customers. But basically, through Genentech, they help us build the product, and it was fit for a lot of other larger companies. So Genentech was the first paying customer, but also helped us build the product and grow the company.
Interesting. So you did that company. How many years did you do that for?
So I did this one for 3.5, almost 4 years, and I started to battle some of the big guys, and we started to get some offers for acquisition, and sold the company to a company just went public at the time called Ultimate Software Group.
Okay.
The symbol is ULTI, and Ultimate Software Group today worth about $10 billion. Nice. And they're going through their own getting acquired and acquisition right now. But it was a great success for me in such a short period of time. I stayed with them for only a few months, about 6 months, and started my next venture.
Okay. So you did a few companies, right? So was the next company also in this space, or you decided
it was something different. It was in the e-commerce strategic sourcing company called Vidcom. It was crazy time there then, 98, 99, when all the .com was booming. The internet was happening back then. And within a year, so we grew up to about 65, 70 people, and hit a couple of large customers, General Motors, Hewlett-Packard, and the bids start coming in. And it was crazy times. So just about a year or 13, 14 months, sold that company to Commerce One.
Nice.
And again, the timing was good, and back then the numbers were crazy high.
And did you raise like venture capital around that time? How did those things work?
Raised from first it was my own money, and then a couple angels and a small seed fund. No one is familiar with them; they're not around anymore. It was about $4 million total raise.
Got it. And then you did that for 15 months, and then you started your third company.
Right. So. Well, that was the third.
Oh, that was
the third. Yeah, and then I stayed with Commerce One for about a year, and then I decided to move to what we call the dark side, to start to invest on my own in early stage startups.
Got it. So really curious around those times. So you decided to move from Boston or Illinois from Chicago to the Bay Area. Right? What about network? It's a lot about the kind of network you built, and you're moving from a completely new city, starting a new company. How did you go about finding the right people to work with and building those connections?
Very good question. It was very tough because I had maybe 1 or 2 contacts here, very limited, and I had to start from scratch. And starting a company, hiring people, building the technology, not myself, but and building a company and networking. So I was just basically around the clock between working the companies, and almost every evening I went to a different event just to meet people, networking. Some events were worthless, and some were interesting, but I got to meet some interesting people. This is how I got to my first customer, which was Genentech, through networking event, and on and on. So starting from basically ground level all the way up to building a company.
Interesting. So you decided to come to the dark side of venture capital, which is good for us. But how was that initial experience of deciding to invest, and what was the first company you invested in? How did that turn out?
Okay, so it's interesting because as an entrepreneur, all of a sudden you think you know how to invest in other entrepreneurs, but it's not the case. Also, you get very confused because you have a bucket of money and you want to spread it all over, what we call spray and pray, and think that will happen and work out. No, so my first investment was in a company that if they did it 5-6 years later, it would have been Facebook. But it was premature and no one even thought about social networks.
Right. What was the name?
And the name was localmusic.com.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting, and the name was whatever the name, and they were thinking about doing social network aspect starting in local bars. Company didn't make it. That was my first. The next one happened to be a good one. It was at the time Pets.com.
Mm-hmm.
They got merged, went public. Again, who would have thought that people will buy pet stuff or pet supplies and pet food online? But this is one of the companies that actually survived the .com. And I did not have a lot of involvement in that company. And after this investment, when things start to happen on the positive side, I realized that maybe this is not how I want to do it. I don't want to just spray in stuff that I'm not getting involved in. No, I want to invest more significant amount of money to lead the seed round in company and be involved and make an impact, again, in companies and area space that I can help. So that's what I've been doing since 2001.
Cool. So that was Pets.com in 2001.
Right.
What were those times like?
So it was crazy times. People remember the history. Mid 2000, things start to happen and start to go the wrong direction. But again, the end of 2000, beginning of 2001, it was still okay, and then the bottom just fell off, and things were completely dark until 2004 or 2005, until Google went public. It was a real tough time, and it was a good learning, especially with my own capital, is where to invest, where not to invest, to choose the right entrepreneurs, because I think it's probably the period of time that the largest amount of companies shut down. It was in those 2-3 years, since I don't know how many years going back. So it was a good time learning how to deal with rough time and build good companies that last long.
Got it. And as you sort of, did you stop investing as you went through that period, or you got more selective, or were there no companies to invest?
So I slowed down a little bit like everyone else and got a little bit more selective, and I had a couple of bad investment at that time. Bad investment because I didn't make money, lost money. Company might have been good, but the times were bad. And probably a couple opportunities that were not the right opportunity. But I think I learned a lot probably through from 2001 until 2006. What I want to do, how to identify companies, how to work with entrepreneurs, which entrepreneurs I want to work with. And as you suggested, I did a lot less at that time, and then start to pick it up again in 2006, 7, and 8.
Got it. You also, after that, you invested in a company called Check.
Right.
Which you continuously invested. That's super interesting to me.
Sure.
That you had so much belief that you invested in multiple rounds.
Right. So I met Guy, the entrepreneur, in 2006. He was at Hewlett Packard at the time, and only a year later, when he started the company, I invested in him in mid 2007. And I was the only investor initially, the lead investor, and also was the chairman of the company. And the company survived the downturn of the end of 2008, 2009, which again, many companies had to go shut down, couldn't raise money. But they built a good company, good foundation, and they survived that. So I invested in the seed, in the A and B and the C round.
Oh, okay.
The C was little, but yeah, I invested in all those rounds because I really had believe in the company and conviction. And the company went through tough times and came out of it, started to grow. They took advantage of the smartphones that came out.
Okay.
The Apple phone, 2008, they were one of the first applications, and the entire solution of the company moved from the web to the smartphone. And the company started to have some options in 2013. And 2014, we had a very nice outcome. The company got acquired by Intuit, and everyone did well. We stayed good friends. I stayed very good friends with the founders, and as a matter of fact, the founder and CEO started another company a year or two later, which I'm an investor there as well.
Got it. So you, I think, from investing into Pets.com, you moved to investing more in FinTech. How did you learn about the industry? What made you decide to be sort of an expert?
So I always had some kind of curiosity about the banking and the financial, and obviously financial technology. And I realized and noticed, especially after spending some time with Check at the time, initially the name was Page One, then Check, that the banking industry and anything around it still living with technology from 30 years ago. Basically what people say the Middle Ages. But and I start to kind of spend more time into FinTech and then check, and then a couple months later or 6 months after the investment in check, I ran into Renaud that started Lending Club. I met him before he started the company and got involved with that. And he did, Lending Club did something that no one believed that can be done. It's crazy to give money to people with no collateral.
Yeah.
So through Lending Club also I got more and more involved in FinTech, and as things progressed, both companies did well. I got to learn and know more and more about financial technology.
Good. Just to explicitly clarify, you were one of the early investors in Lending Club. What rounds did you do? How was that process? I think Lending Club initially was like a Facebook app.
Correct.
That over time became a marketplace.
Correct. So the idea that Renaud, the CEO and founder, came up with is to do peer-to-peer lending through social network, through Facebook and maybe other social networks that were there at the time. There was no intention to do it with people that don't know each other or not in the same network.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and that changed real quick. Probably within the first 12 months, they realized that it's not big enough to do it this way, and the marketing is very limited, and they decided to open it up to the entire population in the US.
So they moved off of Facebook?
They moved off of Facebook, all the marketing moved away from Facebook. I mean, they did some later on as a general marketing, but it's not through your network. It's not necessarily people you know that you lend money and borrow from.
Got it. And when you were evaluating that seed investment in Lending Club, you sort of put money in on the premise that people will give each other money on Facebook or other social networks.
Correct. So obviously you look at the entrepreneur and most of the decisions should be made on that, and I really trusted and believed in what Renaud is doing, and he had a conviction that he's going to build something big and disrupt the lending space. Peer-to-peer is not something that people are familiar, definitely not through the internet. So he was innovating and revolutionary. And yeah, I invested in the seed, I invested in the A, and also put money on the platform as a peer-to-peer lender. So I was one of the side
one of the people who initially were the investors in the loan notes that were that other loans other people were getting. So you were given the loan notes.
Correct.
And was it always like, or when it started initially, was it like loans divided into multiple small things? I think Lending Club also had to get SEC approval.
Correct.
So they were not doing loans for, I think, a period of like 9 months to 12 months.
So there was a period of 9 months that they had to go through the SEC certification and get approval by the SEC, and the competitors did not do it and paid for it later on. So it was about 8 to 9 months, that what we call the quiet period, that you could not do peer-to-peer from individuals. So you had to get accredited investors, high net worth individuals that affiliated with the company. So people like myself and other seed investors or other venture investors that were involved had to put money on the platform, and then that was divvied up to the different borrowers.
Got it. And then you did seed, and then you did A for it, and that then completely changed the lending industry as we know it today.
Absolutely, yeah. And then there were a couple other companies that were trying to do it, and they grew to a certain size. Again, it's still a small part of the entire lending space, but it definitely disrupted the space and created a whole new industry of lending.
Got it. And after Lending Club, or during those times, did you make other investments too?
So I made a couple other investments as well, not necessarily in FinTech. Some of them did well, some of them still around, and some of them not. Yeah.
What were some of the early mistakes that you sort of figured out as you started investing?
Not to invest in hardware. Some people do well in hardware. Hardware makes things a lot more complicated, and there's adding more moving parts into the equation. That stay away from that. Make sure that myself align the goals with the founders. So the investors should be aligned. Make sure that the follow-on investors are the right people for the company. and help the company where you can help, and don't disturb the company or don't bother the company where you can't. And as far as general looking at investment is do an area that you can add value, have some connection, and know some people and investors in the area.
Got it. As with every investor, there must be other companies that you passed on. So you kind of what people call anti-portfolio today, companies that you looked at and you decided not to invest, but went on to become really big. Just give a couple of examples of companies that you decided not to invest in that are bigger now.
So my co-investors that invest with me in some of the deals had a meeting with a company which I missed that meeting and they end up not investing. I don't know if I would have invested in them or not, but it appears that they're going to go public this year. It's called Uber. So I didn't pass on it, but my co-investors passed on it, and I was not in that meeting, so I don't know if it's a good excuse or not. I'll tell you a good investment I had. I invested in Zillow early. I wasn't one of the original seed. I came a little bit later with them, but at the time there were a couple other opportunities that we looked at, and which one we missed? One of them I don't remember. But anyway, usually as investor we don't tell anyone else about our bad investments, and definitely not the one we missed. But unlike some other people, I don't mind missing an opportunity if the company do good, because it helps. Obviously, it's good for the entrepreneur and it's helped this entire ecosystem. So I'm happy for companies even if I pass on them and they do great.
Interesting. That's a different point of view. I've heard people always try to get into as many big companies as they can, and they make their funds bigger, they hire more partners, they do all of that. You haven't done any of that?
No, I had many opportunities to either join other venture capital funds or to join other people to start a fund. No, I decided a few years ago that I want to do it this way. I want to invest my own money, take my own risk, put my own sweat, equity, and money into the deals, and also this way I don't have to deal with limited partners too. So my own boss.
So you meet with the entrepreneurs, and if you like the idea, if you like the founders, the founding team, and so you make an investment decision and you do it. I do on my own. I sometimes get some help maybe from other people just to validate it, and sometimes if it's very technical on the technology side, get some help. But I make my own decisions, good or bad, right or wrong. So you've been in the US for about 30 years now?
32 years.
And you've been married for
30.
30, okay. So and your wife has always been a part of
yes.
Journey. I remember talking to her, and initially you both made decisions together and about the company, about investments, and then over time you took a more independent role, I guess, in making decisions.
Yeah. So so obviously I've been with my wife for so many years, even before I moved here. I met her overseas, and as a matter of fact, on the last company, Commerce Bid, she deserved a lot of the credit. It was actually her idea. I just took over, and she was with me in the company, and she helped with everything, and she was the finance person. But she came up with the idea, and I ran the company, and it was a very successful exit. And since then, a lot of the investment, so we have other investment other than high tech, but most of the high tech investment I do, and some of them, obviously I get her opinion, get her involved, and she helped me to look at some of the companies. She has a finance background, which is very helpful.
Got it. Cool. So in the past 30 years now, moving to the US from Israel as an immigrant and then going directly into tech, how's your advantages or disadvantages you felt moving from a different country to the US? Like you have no network when you move here.
Right, so the no network is a challenge. Also, the immigration wasn't a big challenge for me because I got married after a year, but credit was always an issue in the beginning. Even though getting married, not being here long enough, as you guys know, and solving that problem, we had issue with co-signing for the apartment or getting credit. I had no credit history whatsoever, and I know it's a problem even today. networking was a challenge. I got lucky enough and I got started working after 6 months being here with someone that already been here, and the company just took off. Also lucked out with the technology that advancing and growing so fast when the PCs just picked up, and it wasn't hard to pick it up and understand how things works. Didn't need 4 years of college for that. So that was very helpful, and the amount of money that went into technology back then and even today was very helpful for basically my career.
Got it. Want to sort of discuss just some very nuanced things that a lot of people probably don't think about. So, for example, if I've moved here from India, my habits, my hobbies, my interests are very different than a lot of people who are U.S. citizens. Basically, grew up with a very different culture, and you end up meeting a lot of people because of shared interests.
Right.
So, in addition to doing the things that you are interested in as an individual, you also do things that may help you meet some people to build your network. Did you have any of those things, like where you, as you mentioned earlier, you went to a lot of events,
Right.
hiring? Not sure if that was what you were interested in, or you just did it because you had to make the company work.
Yeah, so networking was challenging the first 8 years in Chicago, but once I moved here to the Bay Area, to Silicon Valley, it seems like it's the land of immigrants.
Yeah.
And people are much more open,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we all had a common interest, which is technology. So networking events were about technology, which help sort of break down the barriers of different ethnic groups, different backgrounds, and help people kind of put them together. But networking was a big part, and it was much easier doing it here. And even today, it seems like it's a lot more open and accommodating here in the Silicon Valley.
Compared to like 30 years ago.
Yes, absolutely.
Is there anything else you think we should talk about that I missed? The last
No,
parts?
do you want to talk something about more FinTech or no?
No, not necessarily, because it's more about your experience as an immigrant moving
Okay.
from like a founder to an investor and like making it in the Bay Area.
Yeah. So I mean, the one thing as far as immigrant is, since it's a land of immigrants here, go get out, network with people, even if it makes you uncomfortable. The more you do it, you'll get more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And networking help people and help businesses and help build big businesses. I think it's very important. Today with technology, people using the networking effect or the marketplaces to help it, but I mean the human interaction is still very important.
Got it. And as you have sort of spent 32 years in the technology industry, in both starting companies and investing, can you like just give some pieces of advice from both like a founder's point of view, because you've been one started multiple company, and both also an investor point of view. So when you if you're a founder, like some tips for that, and B, like if someone is pitching to investors, like some key pieces of
Right.
advice.
And for me, it's two of the same, because even as an investor now, I live vicariously through the entrepreneurs and the founder as a founder, but also since I've been on both sides, I kind of I feel like I understand it pretty well. But from founder perspective, if you find something that you really believe in and it has a good potential, go for it. Make sure you have the right co-founder or partners with you. Go build it up. Don't listen to people that put you down or say it's not the right thing, including investors that won't invest in you and say this is not going to happen. If you really believe in that and you're realistic about it, don't give up and do that. Make sure you have the right co-founders to work with you, because this is important. This is a 8 to 10 years journey. It's really like a long-term relationship of married couple. So make sure you have the right partners. Keep building it. Don't give up. Keep growing it. Be realistic. What else can I say? Go ahead.
Yeah. That's cool. And you never had a co-founder, right? So it was always you and your wife, or like.
Well, the last company I brought a technology co-founder.
Okay.
that worked with us. He came a little bit later, but made him a co-founder, equity, the whole thing, and he worked out very well because I don't have a strong technical background. Yeah.
Cool. Any last tips for founders pitching you who may want to, who are starting fintech or non-fintech companies?
I mean, the most important thing when I look at entrepreneurs is I want to make sure that they're honest and it's something I can work with. These to me are the most important thing. And then I'm looking at the idea and the market and stuff like that. But the entrepreneur is the most important thing. A lot of time, the entrepreneur has a so-so idea, but it's someone very strong, someone you believe, and they're going after a large market. They can make changes. I'm not talking about pivot, but make some adjustment, make the right moves to take the company somewhere. Good entrepreneurs can do it. So good entrepreneur with so-so idea, it's better than bad entrepreneur with a great idea.
Got it. And that's what was with, I guess, Lending Club. Renault was initially doing it on Facebook and then moved it to a marketplace.
Yeah, right. It wasn't clear initially if this is going to happen, but you knew that you have an entrepreneur that really has conviction in what he's doing.
Cool. Great. Thanks for your time.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back with some more guests in the next videos.